Hello and welcome to everyone. So pleased to be here for the Heritage Champions bit of the conference, and welcome everyone who's joined us. Really pleased to have you here. My name's Julie Lee. I'm chair of this session, and my background is rugby league. I've been working along Sporting Heritage team to connect the history of national governing bodies and bring sporting histories to life. In 2019, Sporting Heritage received a Sport England grant to deliver a 3-year project. This is to work with small and medium national governing bodies to establish and understand their heritage collections, and an emphasis on women and disability. This session will tell you about the successes, the challenges, and more about the Heritage Champions Forum that we've brought together. So over the 2 years, Bridget Power and myself have contacted over 120 national governing bodies to engage them in the project, 85 who've now got their own website. And we also have this Thriving Heritage Champions Forum. And as we begin to uncover the history and the gems that we have in all the national governing bodies, we've developed podcasts, educational resources, exhibitions, one-to-one support, and developed a toolkit to support them through their heritage journey, of which hopefully you've been engaging with throughout this conference. The aim is to empower the national governing bodies to become the custodians and disseminators of their own heritage. There is opportunities as part of this session to ask questions in the chat feed. So if anyone's got any questions, then please feel free to put them in the chat feed, and we'll endeavour to answer them all. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce two amazing women who have been part of the Heritage Champions, and I had the pleasure and the honour actually to meet through this project and to discuss what they were going to do. Well, first of all, to say, I bet you've got loads of heritage, and they're all going, absolutely, yes, we have. And then to be able to share it as part of the sort of the Heritage Champions, but also as part of this particular project now. And the Heritage Champions Network it's about sharing and the sort of the journey, which we'll discuss a bit later. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Anita Broad from Stoolball. Welcome, Anita. And also Gilda Chambers from the Keep Fit Association. Before we wobble on and ask loads of questions and go into a bit of a panel, I'd like to ask Anita if she would just tell us a bit more about Stoolball and share with us the history and all the fascinating things that come with Stoolball.
Yeah, we could probably be here till about 10 o'clock tonight, though, if I don't keep it brief. So yes, hello everybody. I can't see you, but hopefully you can see us. And I'm just so pleased to be here to introduce you to Stoolball and our fabulous heritage and history, which stretches back over 500 years. So obviously I'm going to have to keep it brief because, you know, 500 years is a long time. But what I'm going to do is I've got a slideshow. If I could just share that with you and just chat over the top of it, if that's okay with you. So if I can just share screen. Excuse me while I fiddle about. Right, I think we should be there. I hope everyone can see that. As I said, I'm Anita Broad and I represent Stoolball England. We are one of the small national governing bodies that Julia mentioned. We are an officially recognised national governing body, but we're tiny, but we do big things. So Stoolball England, this is our logo. If you haven't already looked us up and you don't know what Stoolball is, I'm going to give you a quick whistle-stop tour. So you can see our website there. We also have a YouTube channel and you can see lots of videos of how the game is played. But here we go. So Stoolball, if you know how cricket is played, you know how Stoolball is played, because in principle it's exactly the same. It's a striking and fielding game. We have overs, we have wickets, bats, balls, just the same, fielding side, batting side. But you can see from this picture, it's a very different bat, it's a very different wicket, and it's a different ball. But principle is the same. And as I say, over on our YouTube channel and on our website, you can see lots of videos of how the game is played. This is actually an action shot of a bowler bowling to the batter. You can see, hopefully, the white ball as it approaches the bat. So why is it important to me to be a heritage champion? Well, I think that the history and heritage of Stoolball is in my blood. You can see a black and white picture here of my grandmother and my mum as Stoolballers. They played together. And on the other side, you can see me and my daughter who played together. So I think it's in my blood. But I'm also a social historian. I'm really interested in sport and its history. And in the middle picture there, you can see some of our history panels, which actually describes all 500 years of the history. So moving on, with Stoolball having such a long history, we have to be careful that we don't just sit in our past. So we like to keep our feet firmly in the present and the future. And you can see one of our under-21 teams playing there. And in the other image, you can see a picture from 1878, which is at Horsham Park, in actual fact. So we like to keep one foot in the past and the other one firmly in the present. But we know how important the history of the sport is. So going back that 500 years and more, Stoolball came from rural medieval times when people played with just what they had around, a stool that you sit on. The picture isn't terribly clear, but that lady is groveling around by a stool, and it would have been a game that happened, just evolved, and they probably would have thrown stuff at each other while sitting on the stool or defended the stool, and then it evolved from there. Moving swiftly on from medieval times to Victorian times was when there was the first huge mushrooming of the popularity of the sport, and we claim it as a Sussex sport because it first appeared in Sussex villages and it was first recorded in Sussex villages. If you know the village of Glyndebourne, the world famous opera house is there, but we also have the famous Glynd Butterflies team, and they played across the social spectrum, from the ladies of the house to the maids and the school teachers and everybody in between. It says here first female sports stars because they were the first recorded team, and the records are held at the East Sussex Record Office. They're also the first cricket club, if anyone's interested. Moving on to World War I, we have a link with both women and disability here. The Stoolball was used as a rehabilitation sport for injured World War I soldiers. It was seen as a simple and easy sport for them to get exercise with, especially for those soldiers who'd lost a limb. I don't know if you can see in this picture, but there's a gentleman with an arm missing and a leg missing, and it became a massively popular sport after First World War as a fundraiser, as a sport for rehabilitation, and also it just became so popular and then moved from just Sussex to all around the country, and we had about 2,000 teams playing. Here you'll see a picture of Lord's Cricket Ground with a Stoolball match being played on the hallowed turf. And in 1923, the first Stoolball Association was formed at Lord's, and there was an annual match and various fundraisers played at Lord's, fundraisers for the injured soldiers charities. And in 1923, so in 2023, will be our centenary, and we'll be working with Lord's Cricket Ground to create an exhibition, and that's come through the Heritage Champions roles. So that's really exciting for us. And there's one of my favourite pictures. This also is at Lord's, a lady running towards the wicket to get in, and the wicket keeper hoping to get her out. So that was 1924, that picture. It's a newspaper clipping. But as I said, the popularity mushroomed. mostly down to one gentleman, Major William Wilson Grantham, and he just was an ambassador for the sport. He was quite an eccentric, but hey. And so here's a picture of boys playing in the playground in Stockton, I think near Manchester, and girls playing in Dundee. In 2010, Sport England recognised Stoolball England as a national governing body and Stoolball as an officially recognised sport. So we had worked quite a few years to get that recognition, and we are so proud of that. But that was then. This is now. You can see the similar actions there. Mostly Stoolball is played by women. It's mostly seen as a women's sport, but we do have mixed teams as well. We have quite thriving mixed leagues. And in this picture, you can see a mixed team playing in one of the most idyllic settings, I think you'll find. When you play sport, outdoor sport, cricket or Stoolball, you'll find that you play in some beautiful places. Collecting memories is really, really important to us. And these are a few pictures from a project that I ran probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And we worked with 4 local primary schools, and we used Stoolball and the history and heritage of Stoolball as a whole topic. We had various workshops, one of which was an oral history workshop, which is another of my hats that I wear. I'm an oral history trainer. It worked really well. The children learnt so much about their village and about their about old players, young players, players that have retired. So this sums us up really. Stoolball is an absolutely joyous sport. It's very family orientated, very community orientated, and across the spectrum we have many generations playing. But we let the men play too, and these men can as well, and it's just the most fabulously exciting sport for everybody. And if I haven't convinced you already, to go and have a look and see what Stoolball is about, and have a look at some of the videos that we have. This is another bowl of bowling. You can see the ball just skimming the top of the wicket, which is where you'd be out. We can hit, we can throw and catch with the best of them. And this is probably one of my favourite pictures as well. This shows the intergenerational nature of our sport. And this happened when my club had invited a school, a secondary school from London, to come and see what Stoolball was about. And while we were there, this lady with the bat by the guy in the orange t-shirt, she was there and she said, "Oh gosh, I remember playing Stoolball. I used to love it." And so we gave her a bat. She stood at the wicket, and the young man behind her, she hit the ball and the young man did the running for her. And I just think that's a really wonderful thing to have done. So that's it really in a nutshell. Do look us up and get playing Stoolball.
Thank you so much, Anita. That is absolutely wonderful. I just love all those pictures, particularly from the olden times. And I remember us first talking and you telling us about the stools, and I hadn't actually seen the pictures of people sitting on the stools and playing. That's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
but also, yeah, the inclusive.
Sorry, that was a mock-up from there are teams, communities playing in America. Because it did go to America with the Pilgrim Fathers, and so they replay those.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. Thank you ever so much, and thank you for selling your sport so well. I now wonder why, as a Yorkshire girl, I was never allowed. It never even crossed my path, the Stoolball, but I'd like to. So without further ado, Gilda, I'd like to introduce Gilda Chambers from the Keep Fit Association to tell us more about the Keep Fit Association, but also what you do in Heritage, which again, I absolutely love.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. As Julia says, my name is Gilda Chambers and I am the events director for the Keep Fit Association, and more recently our Sporting Heritage Champion. The vision of the Keep Fit Association is to deliver quality and safe movement and dance classes to local communities year on year. We do this by training, mentoring and nurturing our instructors to teach and support individuals, whatever their needs, to achieve their very best in pure movement and dance. Our classes and training courses help everyone from the very young to the very old. We are a wonderful association, a family of keep fitters that promote long-term active living and a focus on the joy of movement, fulfilling people's lives for both physical and mental well-being. Our guiding light is 1930s renowned choreographer Rudolf Laban. It is by using his principles that we make our Keep Fit Laban dance fitness unique. Laban believed that dance should give joy to people through moving together, and we certainly agree with him. With our teachers across the country connecting communities of movers together, as demonstrated by this short video that we play for you now.
There's no sound.
Thank you. And that was the little video montage that we put together for this year's Sporting Heritage Day. And it really does encompass and say in just under 2 minutes exactly what the Keep Fit Association is all about.
Thank you, Gilda. I absolutely love that video. It gives me goosebumps every time I watch it, just to see the pure pleasure and joy of everybody that's actually involved. Thank you, and thank you for sharing that. And thank you, both Gilda and Anita, just for sharing your, I know you've got so much to say that you've shared a very minute bit of what you've been doing. But what I'm really interested in, and Bridget's here, so I think Anita, you first met Bridget, didn't you, when you were part and parcel of this project, and then she went off on maternity leave. So she just wanted to know, one, that she's out there watching you, and she's just so pleased with just the representation and the national governing bodies. But I'm going to ask her a question, actually, because it would come over in the question anyway. She's really interested to know about the Sporting Heritage Project and why it's so important for national governing bodies to engage with their heritage and what you've got from it, really. So if I start with you first, Anita, and then I'll come on to you, Gilda.
Yeah, I think it's been really significant for us, especially as a national governing body that's so small and unfunded. So we can get a massive amount of advice and work with the larger associations, organisations that are way further down the line than we are. We don't have physical offices, for example. So we're all working remotely. We were anyway. But it's been so valuable in terms of networking and learning from others and partnering with others. And it's also given us a platform to showcase who we are and what we do. I mean, I would never have had this opportunity to show everybody the history and the joy of Stoolball without this. And as I sort of briefly mentioned in that presentation, 1923, 2023 will be the centenary of our very first National Stoolball Association, as it was called then. And without this networking opportunity, and to speak to Alan at MCC at Lord's about doing a joint exhibition, he wouldn't have been aware of that happening. He may not even be aware that Stoolball was played on the hallowed ground, on the actual the fields, and we've got newspaper cuttings and what have you. So we'll be working with them. In fact, I'm going up in the middle of November to meet with him and see what archives they've got and what we've got, and how we can make an exhibition that will be in the pavilion. So just that one thing is a massive positive for us. I also wrote an article for the newsletter, and that's given us just wide coverage that we would never have had before, and the opportunity to learn and to get advice has been invaluable.
Yeah, thank you. The group's been great, hasn't it, particularly for getting all that help and advice. And I know when we found out that you were first on the hallowed turf of Lords, it was just fantastic. Great collaboration. How about for you, Gilda, then? Just again, the same question really, what you've got out of being part of Sporting Heritage and why it's so important for national governing bodies to engage.
Well, I can echo exactly what Anita has said, because I think we've all, as whatever association or sport we're in, we know we've got memorabilia in boxes in the garage, suitcases under the bed. It's all everywhere, but it's so important to bring everything together. And the benefit of being in the Sporting Heritage Champions group is that you can learn from others who are much further along, and the honesty with what they share to say, don't do it that way because it didn't work for us. Save yourself time, do it this way. But it's learning about other sports and other sports learning about us. And it is a great way to share your story, because we all have a rich history. And one of the other things we did for Sporting Heritage Day is we put an article into the virtual exhibition celebrating one of our earlier pioneers, a lady called Madge Baranek, and she was an inspirational teacher and trainer, and her name and others like her, they are still revered today by the present day community. So it's continuing to have that link with where we've come from and never forgetting it, but taking it forward to meet the challenges of today. We would not have had that benefit without joining in with Sporting Heritage, because they have provided also all the various tools and resources to get you started. So it's nice to know that your challenge is no different from anybody else's in what you want to do, and that you're not alone, and there are people there to help you get started. So it's invaluable.
Yeah, it has been lovely for that, hasn't it? As you say, the way that everyone has just generously shared. And I've got here, Alan's in the audience, hey. And he says hello.
Hi, Alan. I'll be seeing you next month.
Yeah, and he says he was aware, but they didn't have any material on it. So again, what a fabulous collaboration.
Yeah.
And Alan's from cricket, so and lovely to see you here, Alan. It'd be really interesting as well, because I think we can't go without saying that heritage doesn't come with its challenges, and understanding your heritage and being able to collect it. So Anita, what the challenge has been for you as a national governing body and collecting your heritage?
I think our biggest challenge is not what we've got, it's where it is and what we do with it if people give it to us. That's the physical challenge of as Gilda said, of everybody keeping their memorabilia in the cupboard, under the bed, in the loft, and not being able to share it. And so that physicality of not having a physical museum. We would love to have a digital museum, but we don't have the resources. We don't have the money. Several of us, work full time. I myself wear several hats all at once, you know, different businesses, and you know, this part of my life is so important, but you know, we have to earn a crust as well. So it's that physicality of what there is, where it is, and then what do we do with it. And I think that's where the toolkit will come in. You know, the Sporting Heritage Toolkit, which should be able to help us to kind of focus on how we can do this and give us advice and work with others maybe. I mean, it won't create us a physical museum, but it maybe help us create our digital museum. And I would love to get, you know, the things that people are so proud of. There's so many photos out there, and whenever you do bring them out, whenever we have an exhibition, whenever we have Stoolball England matches, people come along and they look at the photos and they talk about them and they share their memories. There's several videos that I've put up with people sharing their memories whilst looking at photographs, and I think that's really important. But to be able to share those artifacts and photographs digitally, at least, would be amazing. So that's one of the barriers is time and resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you would echo that.
Barriers.
They go very well together. You'd echo that, Gilda, wouldn't you? And
yeah, yes, I would. And you know, it is important to know how you want to log and catalogue what you have, because certainly from the Keep Fit Association's perspective, we've got a national archive, so where we have national events and we put on our Festival of Dance, for example, but then you're going to have the local memories of the teams that took part in the event. So you've got your overall story linked with the local teams and photos, you know, having lunch in Hyde Park in some very dodgy costumes and makeup, you know, and things. So, you know, you've got those there. So I've got quite a lot of heritage from my region, my geographical region. So I'm starting to go through that to make some sense of that. So I want to use the toolkit. So once I know how it's a sensible way to log what we have, we can ask our local regions to start doing this from a local level. So you're bringing together your local heritage for each area, plus the overall arching national one. That's kind of what we want to try to do. But yeah, the challenge is of finding it, sifting through it, time, being able to have the good technical supporting scanning to make it a good image for people to look at. But it'll take time, but it's so worth doing.
Yeah.
I think as well, for us, you know, apart from people having their things in the cupboards and wherever else, our archive is also spread. So we do have an archive which our president holds at her home, but we also have, there's collections at Sussex Archaeological Society, for example, at the East Sussex Record Office, at the West Sussex Record Office, at various town museums. And so we don't actually know, I mean, we know where some of these things are, but, you know, to try and bring them all together would be a real benefit to women's sport history, you know, to know where those histories are. But when they're so spread about and not having, we need to bring those partnerships together, basically, to be able to celebrate our history. At the moment, it's all a bit all over the place.
I remember having similar conversations with you, Gilda, when we first met, about all your attics full of memorabilia.
Yeah, but it's encouraging people to share what they have, and that no memory is too small, because, you know, you might just say somebody may just have kept 1 or 2 photographs of something, of an event they were in, but that's you know, share it, because you may be the only one with those photographs. You know, it's encouraging people to share what they have, regardless of whether it's a pile of all our programs from all the events we used to have at the Albert Hall going back many years, compared to 1 or 2 photographs. It's all valuable stuff to keep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from when we first met, Gilda, where are you now on your thought process around where you're going to take your collections? I know we were talking collection, you were like what's a collection? You know, what do you mean by collection? You know, and all those sort of things about how you're managing it.
Well, I think it would be very nice, particularly having put an exhibition, you know, the virtual exhibition that Sporting Heritage did this year. It would be really nice to be able to have something similar, a bit like what Anita's mentioned with a digital exhibition, your digital museum. You know, we need to be able to record things in a digital format. So that's our starting point, and to build up, because we have alongside our main Keep Fit Association website, we have a Keep Fit Communities website, which is for each of our geographic regions. So it shows what's going on in each of the areas, and it would be nice to have something in each you know, alongside that community website, to show some history, local history of each, you know, like the northeast area, where did that come from, who the pioneers in that area. So I think it's trying to link it all in, to use what we have got as a resource and put something that's digital onto that, so it's like a virtual exhibition, rather than have it just all in one place, because that would take some housing. Yeah, so we've put a couple of calls out to people through our magazine and you know, Facebook, etc., asking for people to let us know what memorabilia they have. So we're still in that kind of ticking off and saying, oh, how very nice, we've got that, yes, we'll take that. You know, so but we do need to ask the help of our local regions in cataloguing it, because they could send me, you know, our southwest region could send me all what they have as memorabilia, but it will be local events. I won't know what that's all about, so our local areas need to be involved in the process to be able to bring it all to life. So
yeah,
we're still collecting, still finding out what everybody has.
I just remember our first conversation, it was like, goodness, once we put that in the newsletter, we're just going to get inundated. But you're beginning to make sense of it now, aren't you? And
yes,
where it all fits.
Yeah, because in particular, we've asked people to tell us what they have, rather than say, oh, goody, I can get rid of my box
and drop it off.
Here it is.
You know, I don't have a garage to put it in. So so it's nice to know what is there and start it that way, so we can have individual conversations with people about, right, okay, can you do this with it now, so before we bring it all together. But yes, we're starting to make a bit more sense as to what we can do.
Yeah, I know there was a definite sense of overwhelm, wasn't there, of the possibilities. So this has really helped you be able to put it into some sort of perspective, really, and gradually progress.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, when we have our calls with the other sporting organisations that are much further ahead than us, to say, well, just try it this way, try it that way, so you're not having the learning and, oh, that didn't work sort of experience. You're starting much further ahead on the benefit of what other people are able to share with you. So that's really been a benefit.
Lovely, thanks. And Anita, from your point of view, you know, where you started from, I know you were a historian, sort of where as you were sort of coming into it, has it helped along that journey, being part of the Heritage Champions and the Sporting Heritage Project?
Yes, is the short answer. But in terms of where we are, I think possibly it gives us, you know, these aspirations that then you kind of think, oh my goodness, you know, talking about the overwhelm. So we're still at very, very early stages. We're still at the, what on earth can we do? And I think, as Gilda said, you know, learning from everybody else's mistakes or experiences, learning experiences, it is a help, but it still makes us aspire to do these huge dreams that we have. And then it's that overwhelm when you try to think about, oh my goodness, yes, but how am I going to get there? Or how are we going to get there? Yeah. But it's just wonderful to hear everybody's projects and how they're doing it and what we could do. So the plans are forming.
Have you got a plan together then of what it eventually looks like?
We've got a where we are and where we'd like to be. It's that bit in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, because if you've ever, I mean, most people will have, if you've ever applied for funding, goodness me, it takes forever. And as well, at the moment, the funding isn't available in the same way as it was. But I think that, if anything, over the past couple of years, we've learnt that the value of what we could lose is just been highlighted so incredibly. So collecting people's memories is not only the things and the memorabilia, it's their thoughts and their memories, and recording those memories is before you lose them. And I think, if anything, over the last couple of years, we've realized the importance of how quickly we can lose things. So, you know, I would say oral histories are invaluable as well, and that's something we would really like to do. We have done a couple. I'm an oral historian and I still haven't had time to do it, but we must, and it's something that everybody should do.
Yeah. Actually hearing it from people's voices is just so important, isn't it? From their stories and how they are, without a doubt. Yeah. And I know there's been quite a few discussions around that sort of in the Heritage Champions, isn't there? Have either of you done any piloting of the toolkits that you talked around? I wasn't quite sure whether you'd been involved in any of the pilots.
I haven't yet. I have done a couple of oral history webinars for Sporting Heritage, and I think those will be included in it at some point, but I haven't actually been able to try anything out yet. I've heard all about it.
Yeah. How about you, Gilda? Have you been involved in anything?
Not in the actual pilot. We had a demonstration of it prior to today at one of our Heritage Champions meetings, and so I'll be looking at it now that it's live and launched, on how I can start to use it, because it's definitely going to be an invaluable resource.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so important and key, isn't it? As part of the development of the heritage. So thank you. You both of you had involvement in the National Sporting Heritage Day. What first of all, what did you do for National Sporting Heritage Day, and then what impact did it have? Would be really interesting for your sport. I'll start with you, Anita.
Yeah, that's probably not the best place to start, because we haven't actually managed to do anything yet. Again, it's one of those things we really want to do, and it should be as simple as just sharing a few photographs, and really should. It's one of those really must. Ooh, haven't done it yet, but I know that you know, we're doing so much else that we're trying to get out there. So we will, I promise.
Yeah.
I've said it on screen now.
You have now. You have to commit to it now, don't you?
We'll hold you to that. Yeah.
And Gilda, the Keep Fit Association's been involved, isn't it?
Yes. So this year we repeated what we did last year, which was put together that video montage which we played earlier. We put the article about our pioneer Madge Baranak into the virtual exhibition, and both of those have just we shared the everything by social media, and it's just generated more interest in what we're doing. You know, lots of people viewing. We know from how many people, it was into the hundreds of how many people had viewed it. You know, lovely comments coming in about how it encompasses and you know, says everything in just 2 minutes about what the KFA is. So it sparked a lot of interest, which is what we wanted into you know, people saying, right, okay, there's a purpose as to why we're being asked to find what we've got lurking in our cupboards and our memorabilia. So it's generated a lot of interest and comments. So, and EMD UK, who's the national governing body for group exercise, also did a video montage for this year, and that shows the benefits of group exercise on a wider scale with all the various different organisations that come into them. So it's just raising the profile of the benefits of group exercise and just getting our name out there and generating interest in our own organisation to take part in what we're going to want to do.
I know, and the exercise, music and dance movement have been very involved, haven't they, in getting you all involved in this as well. I know they were our first point, Bridget and I, they were our first point of call, and that's where we met. And you'll see everyone as you go through the conference, the different partners that are part of that in tomorrow as well, as some of them of today. So it's been a really great collaboration, I think, hasn't it, of bringing exercise, music and dance alive as well as a sport. Which Because interestingly, what you'd said around both of you around the profile of your sports and how this has helped lift the profile of the sports through some of the pieces of work that you've done, and actually put you on the map, not just with sort of the website, but also with the podcasts and the newsletters and being involved in things like this, which is just so important. If there's any top tips for getting involved, what would they be to other national governing bodies who might be watching on this webinar?
I would just say, just do it.
Yeah.
Just get involved, you know, pitch straight in, because, you know, it's that first step. It's always overwhelming, but just get involved, do it.
Yeah. And to record the rich history of the past, from how your particular sport originated and where its foundations are, and to where you want to take it in the future. Because, you know, whilst we're thinking about, we've got a lot of work to do to go backwards to collect the history, but if we have an event today, it's history for the future. So everything that you do needs to be recorded as you do it, rather than just do it, move on, do it, move on. So yeah, just have a look at your own sport and the origins of where you came from and celebrate it.
Yeah, and the thing is, once you've got that information out there, then you can use it for all sorts of things as an education resource. For example, I mentioned the project that I ran with 4 local primary schools. We looked at art, we looked at singing, folk singing, old Sussex folk songs. We looked at researching their local playing fields. We looked at oral history. And also we went and played Stoolball. Obviously, we, you know, with you'll find that with your history, it goes back a lot further than you think. And if you can hit those curriculum points, then it's a useful resource for schools. So Stoolball hits the Tudors, it hits the Victorians, it hits the World Wars, hits the citizenship mark. So that's another way that you can use your sport to benefit your local communities, and I think that's a really valuable thing. But if you don't know what your history is, you can't use it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because quite a number of the national governing bodies have done educational resources, haven't they? Which have been fascinating and then used in the schools. And as you say, if you don't know your history, you can't use it. You can't talk about these champions.
Yeah, I mean, very often the sports will use their sport for numeracy or literacy. I'm talking about the history as well. So I'm not sure how many sports are using their history to relate to the curriculum.
And it is like hidden history, really, isn't it? I know we talk quite a lot about hidden history, but it's like it's not talked about. So there's all the big sports which would talk about great players, and particularly male great players. But has this given you an opportunity to really champion sort of women and disability within your projects?
Yes, I think it, you know, Anita's kind of goes back a lot further than we do and can trace it into that, you know, the Tudors, etc., that you said there. But when we look back at our history and how it started and how hard the women that were taking us forward and is helping to establish the Keep Fit Association, how hard they had to work to persuade people that this was a good thing to do, and that then proved in numbers that it was a good, safe way for women and, you know, mothers and daughters to go along in a very social way to get their exercise, you know. And it's really tracking that part of social history about how the role of women has changed along with how the various associations have developed. You know, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think the value of sport to women, you know, we all know about it these days, but it's less talked about in history. And if you think about Stoolball, for example, played in rural Sussex villages, and people didn't have cars, people didn't have those ways of getting about and meeting other communities. So a team would hire a bus and they would get themselves to another village. And so that group of women would play a match against that group of women, and they'd all come together and they would all chat and they would all talk. There'd be young girls, there'd be older women, and it was a social network which they wouldn't have had if they didn't have their sport. So I think in terms of social history, it's a really important and valuable piece of research, you know, how sport affected and was valued by those women. You know, I'm talking about perhaps, you know, 40s and in Second World War and, you know, and those sort of times. But there is you know, people have memories of those things, and they don't get the chance to talk about it necessarily unless you ask them.
Yeah. And do they think it's history? Do they think it's important?
No.
No. When I ran the project that I ran, I was trying to get people to interview. And oh God, you don't want to talk to me. I haven't got anything to say. When you talk to them, and you find out all sorts of things. And my oral history master's degree dissertation used my team across the generations. And I had a team member, she wasn't playing then, but she was 96, I think she was then. So I interviewed her, I interviewed a 70-year-old, a 60-year-old, a 50-year-old, and a 40-year-old, just to get the different perspectives on the sport. And actually, they were quite similar. They were quite similar, how it would, the value to them of getting out, playing a sport, forgetting everything else, just playing a sport, being good at it or not, as the case may be, but loving it. And you know, and if you don't ask them, you won't know.
Yeah, and it's something for themselves. You know, they go away from the family, and you know, the role of women in society has changed manyfold over the generations. But if you go back to, you know, even just Second World War times, when it wasn't, you know, women didn't go out, they were in the home, they were there. So to go out and have that social network and do something for themselves that they could enjoy, and you know, in the same way as our own individual sports lifts our spirits now, it did it to them as well.
And that's telling these stories, isn't it? And I always remember the Albert Hall photograph you first showed us, Gilda. For those who haven't seen it, it's well worth going to see.
Fabulous photos. In fact, you know, as part of this memorabilia, I found some bits and pieces in my own cupboard, and one of them was a programme from our from the Royal Albert Hall when it was our 50th anniversary. And you know, you opened it and looked at it and thought, I was there, I was part of that. You know, so it is, and it still makes you very proud now. So yeah, we've got lots of things hidden away, and people just take for granted that, you know, as you said, Anita, like, what, me, interview me? But yes, we want to hear about what you remember of how you first started when you joined in the sport and what it did for you personally.
I think as well, there's a lot of there's autobiographies, there's biographies, there's lots of stuff about elite sports people, famous sports people. There's not so much about the quotes, that's a, you know, a contentious word, but the ordinary sports people, the ordinary folk, the ones that turn out every week, the ones that put the pitches out, the ones that do the teas and you know, sell the raffle tickets, those sort of things. And you know, we all know the value these days of the reminiscence sessions. And it's talking about those experiences and those feelings and those memories that is so valuable to community. And, you know, and just being able to talk about it and being asked about it and someone being interested in your story gives you the value and makes it feel like, you know, that it was a worthwhile memory. It wasn't just something that happened, but that people are interested in it and can learn from it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've really heard that loud and clear. And I know from my my collecting history in rugby league and the women's voices being heard, which I did in 2018, where women thought, well, I haven't got a story to tell. And as you begin to uncover it, and it's not, begin to uncover it and you think, wow, that is amazing what you've done in your life. And you think there's not a story to tell. So it's really lovely to be able to uncover it. So you think it's well worth being a champion then?
Absolutely.
Would you being a champion? I've got a few things in here in the chat that I'm just going to bring up. One was around, we mentioned around the education and the educational resources. And Fran's kindly put in there that there's more. If anyone's out there really interested in sporting heritage and how it supports education, and there's been some absolutely awesome projects that have been run. There's an education session tomorrow at 9:30. So get yourself along there, because how sport can be used in education is just endless, and they have some really, really great examples that we'll be able to tell you about tomorrow. Also, the next Heritage Champions meetings is going to be in November. I have something around here around the 25th of November at 10 a.m. That's a suggested date. So if we've got national governing bodies out there, at that one, we're going to have Belinda Scarlett come and talk about Sporting Heritage Day and tell us all about the different ways national governing bodies can get involved, ready for 2022, because it's a great initiative to be involved with. I know I put, as I say, I'm involved in rugby league, and I put the 1996 tourists on my LinkedIn page on the Sporting Heritage Day and just put these great women, last team to beat the Australians, men or women, and I got over 2,000 people engaging with that picture alone, and that was just part and parcel of what we were doing. So the showcasing of everything is just so important, and being involved in something bigger, really, which again is what the Sporting Heritage Champions is about. Have you got, before I begin to sort of wrap up, have you got anything that you'd like to add that you feel that you haven't added to, either of you?
I don't know if it's been able to be put in the chat, but perhaps the link to my education project might be useful. It's a short video about how to use your history and heritage for a school project. It did cover lots of aspects. I think
I'm sure if it hasn't, Fran will put it in. She's been busily, every time you've mentioned anything, she's been busily putting it in the chat. So
it's on our YouTube channel. It's called Let's Play Stoolball. You can get the gist of it in the first couple of minutes, so you don't have to watch the whole 9 minutes, but you can if you like.
And Gilda, have you got anything that you'd like?
Oh, I think we've covered everything. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's in there now. It's in that chat now.
There it is.
So I'd like to thank both of you for your time, and thank you for your enthusiasm throughout this project. You've been an absolute joy to work with. I've really enjoyed working in this particular project and uncovering all the different heritage that's out there. And just for, again, if any national governing bodies are out there, although the particular Sport England project was an emphasis on women and disabilities, it was about the heritage of sport. We don't know enough about the heritage of sport, and we don't dig deep. And now, because of this project, there's just heaps of support to help you as a national governing body. We've talked about the toolkit, the educational resources, we've talked about podcasts, newsletters. There's been one-to-one support throughout this. It's just been loads of ways, because it is initially overwhelming. You go, oh my goodness, how am I going to do all this? And I know there's just so much to collect, and it's being made a lot easier. So if you're, as I say, a national governing body and you want to get yourself along to the Heritage Champions, again, Fran said, please, and it's fran@sportingheritage.org.uk, and everybody's welcome. And as I say, it's a lovely forum. The amount of sharing that people do, they're just so generous with the time, but also with where they are within the heritage. So thank you very much, Anita and Gilda. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I think that's what you call on these webinars.